All right, everyone. So now that we've gone over some basics in Excel, some formatting, etc., which we actually won't be doing too much of that. We're really just going to focus on the pivot tables themselves, but I want to give you some tools beforehand just so you know how to navigate Excel a little bit if you're not familiar with. Nonetheless, so in this video, I want to introduce you to sort of the data set we're going to be using. This is real data. It's from over 10 years ago. It's kind of dated, but that's not the point of it. I mean, it still works, obviously, for our purposes. Um, it's from a real estate company, so they were basically tracking in Excel all their deal flow, basically. You'll see things like offer status. So this is each individual offer and what the status was, the date, the last name of the person, the date it went pending, STI, etc. So there's quite a bit of information here. Property type, neighborhood, the agent, the list price, the offer price, the final price, which would be the sale price if a sale did go through. And then there's some additional information. Commission's a big one. We'll be doing some reporting on that. And dates of mutual acceptance and buyer type, etc. So essentially what we're going to be doing is pretending that and I'm just going to go down to the bottom here, some errant cells over there. I want to see where the bottom of this data set is. There we go. So 827. So imagine, you work for this company and it's your first day on the job and you're given this data set. Your boss comes in and say, hey, here's all of our transactions for the last year. It looks like this spans quite a bit of time, or at least a year. This all seems to be 2006. So here's the data set for 2006. We want to do some analysis. Create us a nice looking report in Excel that we can update and we can, manipulate and look at our data in lots of different ways. How are we going to go about that? So, you're given 2 days to do it. Well, what are you going to do? So first of all, pivot tables, the way to go, and pivot charts. So that's what we'll be focusing on in this course. So we're essentially going to play the role of yourself at your job. Here's your data set. What can we do with it to make some pretty cool reports? So just some other notes on pivot tables. In order to make nice pivot tables, and obviously we're going to get into like the specifics and kind of step by step. So first thing, you need a big data set, which we have here. So, it wouldn't make sense to make a pivot table on 3 lines of data. We have 800 plus lines, so this works. You definitely need it to be in sort of an organized fashion like this is, with different column headings. There's a lot of blank fields in here just because of the nature of what they're doing. Like they're not going to have a pending date when it was just an offer submitted, etc. So that's okay, but you want to make sure it's a complete data set in as much as it can be. You don't want a lot of blank rows at the bottom, so just going up to the bottom again. So when we select our data to create the pivot table, we're going to make sure it just selects from here upwards. And aside from that, guys, that's it. I mean, you need some uniformity as well. Like you can't have offer status and have, lots of different things, or even more important than say a list price. You can have some of them be dollar amounts and some of them be, words and comments and things. That's not going to come out the best for our pivot table. So you want some uniformity in what is included in the data. So you want clean data, I guess is the best way of saying that. Aside from that, we are good. So what we do when we get to creating our pivot table, we'll start in the next lecture actually doing the pivot table. I just want to introduce you to the data here. We're going to create multiple sheets for our different pivot tables. Each one will sort of be focused on one report where, basically we're just going to a degree, freestyle and figure out, well, what would be important? So our boss hasn't given us any direction. They just said, give us, some cool reports, what would be most useful for us? So they're mainly going to be interested in things obviously related to dollars. So we're probably going to create a commission report by agent. I think that's one that seems to make sense. We also might look at final prices, or maybe even lists. Let's look at list prices, maybe average list price by neighborhood. That might be an interesting report. And I already see some data that's, like this is lowercase, this is uppercase. So it'll be curious, and some don't have it. So I'll be curious to see, there's a few with blanks. So I'll be curious to see like how it comes out, and we can deal with fixing issues as we go. We're probably not going to do too many reports based on date. Like there's not too much we can calculate. Ultimately when we're doing the pivot table, we're trying to calculate something. So sums, averages, counts. I mean, we could do counts, on different dates, like how many houses closed on in December and January, etc. Um, we could do types of buyer types, and we could do a count on those. So like how many were first time, how many were experienced, and then investors. So we might do a count on that, etc. So we'll come up with some ideas as we go, see how they come out, and if it's actually useful. Like we'll know once we create the report if it seems like it's useful information that we want to present to management. So once we create all of our different pivot tables, we'll then create a dashboard, sort of a one-stop location for them, where we will combine all those charts into one master dashboard, and then we're going to give them some functionality where they can choose different things then. So maybe they want to filter out by agent. So they want to see all the different reports filtered by a specific agent or a specific neighborhood, etc. So it should be pretty cool. You're going to like what we come up with. That said, let's end this lecture, and the next one, let's get started on creating our first pivot table.